it turned out, we went from, okay, Woody Hayes at Ohio State to Bo at Michigan. Okay, we totally turned the tables. It was the last year of Woody's empire, and this guy had a lot to do with it. Okay, so from more than 50 years later, the Undersized Guard with the Oversized Heart is thrilled to share his behind-the-scenes anecdotes playing Michigan football and his friendship with Bo. So welcome, Dick Caldarazzo. It's an honor to have you here.
Very good. Thank you, Alyssa. Thank you, Keith, and thank this club for inviting me. I'm honored to be here. When we were at the tailgate together, Alyssa and Regina were trying to get me into the women's league that night. Very unsuccessful. Windows were locked, so we couldn't get in. But I also want to acknowledge a special guest, Sue Craw, who's here today. Sue spent a lot of time with us in those years in Michigan, in '69 especially. They were married. She married my best friend, Garvey Craw, who we lost a few years ago to esophageal cancer. He's Garvey gone, but he was my dearest friend. He was a starting fullback for 3 years at Michigan. You couldn't play as a freshman back then, so he started sophomore, junior, and senior year. He was our starting fullback, and to properly recognize him is that at the conclusion of his 3 years, his yards per carry was 3.0. He was a perfect fullback. He ran 3 yards every carry. And the other thing that was amazing about Garvey was that every tailback that played behind Garvey was an All-American. So you can imagine, Garvey was 6'3", 225, a lot bigger than I was. And he would knock people all over the place and make all these other guys heroes, and he took his licks. But he was just a great friend and a great running back. Those who stay will be champions. And a lot of you have seen that banner up along various places. It goes down the tunnel to the stadium. It's in the weight room. It's in a lot of different places. And you may ask where that came from. Where did it come? Well, in the fall of '69, in August, we were preparing for our two-a-day practices, which we thought were going to be 2 a days. Bo made them 3 a days that first week. But in any event, getting ready for the fall, we had just gone through a boot camp with Bo in January and February, winter training, and then spring practice was just carrying guys off the field. Everybody was getting beaten up, and Bo had the understanding or the feeling that we weren't tough enough, and he was going to make us tough. And so guys were going over the hill, leaving school left and right. So the fall comes along, and the assistant coaches tell Bo, these guys are leaving. We're not going to have enough guys to field the team here. We're going to maybe 80 guys left. So Bo puts his banner, gets a banner made by Jim Young, makes the banner, our defensive coordinator. Those who stay will be champions. A big banner, and it's in the locker room right above where we get our mouth guards every day, and after they're sanitized, hopefully. But it's not like the COVID days back then. But in any event, so we would see this sign every day. We walk out to the stadium and see this sign for our practice. Well, after 2 days of 3-a-day practices, getting our butts kicked, John Prusecki, one of the reserve tackles, decides to leave. He closed his locker for the last time. He said, "I'm leaving. I'm done." So as he walks out the door, he gets a black magic marker, and under the words, "Those who stay will be champions," he puts down, "And those who leave will be doctors, lawyers, and captains." So he gave us all a good chuckle, but that was his, and actually he's in Chicago now, and he's a very successful income tax lawyer. But as we went on with that group, our team, we've had just 50-year reunion, by the way, and it's a real strong team. We stay together very, very closely, and we've adopted that. We stayed. That's our logo. 69 champs, we stayed. And that's what we're all about. But to begin to talk about Bo, I think you need to know the final game of the '68 season when we had Bump. Bump recruited all of us. Bo didn't recruit one of us. They were all recruited there by Bump. And in '68, we go down to Columbus, which I will never be back again. That was the last trip I've ever been in Columbus. No offense if you're a Columbus resident, but the fans of Ohio State are just a little unbearable at times. So we were down there for the championship game. It was the Big Ten championship, the right to go to the Rose Bowl. Everything was on the line. Of course, the best rivalry in college football. They were ranked #1. We were ranked number 4 nationally at that time. And we experienced the typical Columbus hospitality. Friday night in the hotel, the alarm went off, and the fire alarm, we had to get up 2 in the morning, we had to go to the curb, and everybody wake up, walking around in gym shorts and go back. And then the next day we warm up we go for the warm up. And I go down the tunnel, and there are these 2 ladies waiting there with a big glass, and I would pray to God it was water or Coke. But whatever they threw inside my mask as I went to the game, they were just waiting for people to pour shit on him as he walked out the tunnel. It was pretty unbearable. And then to finish, I'll get to the game, but to finish the game, we go in the locker room afterwards. We lost. We got our butts kicked over there in the second half. And there's no hot water in the shower. They send in some maintenance guy with a screwdriver and a hammer, and I'll get this on Monday with a thanks. You know? And so I had nice cold showers. So that's the reason I don't go back there. And it's funny, Brian is here from a Penn State guy, and I'll never forget one of my tailgates when Penn State first joined the Big Ten. The people were walking by, and I invite opposing teams always to sit down and enjoy and have a drink with us or have some food. And I said, come on over, you guys from Penn State. They go, you guys are really nice here. I said, why? Oh, last week we were in Columbus. It was awful. So it's not just me. It's not just me. But in '68, the game was, we scored actually first. We scored, it was 6-0, and the first half was a real tight game. And at the half, it was 24-14, or 21-14 at half. And we had a 1 touchdown call back for holding, so we were really close. But the second half, they just blew us out. I mean, they really, you got to remember that team was a national champions eventually after they beat OJ in the Rose Bowl. They beat Southern Cal in the Rose Bowl the following after they beat us, and so they were an awesome football team, and they did kick our butts. They were awfully good. I mean, that second half was terrible, and that's where we get the famous Woody Hayes quote. In the locker room afterwards, the announcers say, Woody, you know, you scored a touchdown, it was 50-14, 1 minute to go in the game. Why did you put the team in to go for 2 points? Because he put Rex Kern, Jim Otis, and he did, because I couldn't go for 3. Now, through the years, a lot of people in Columbus have called me about that. They say, we understand you might be the spokesperson for the '69 team. And did you hear that? I said, well, no, there was no media back then. I didn't hear him say it, but I believe he said it. That's Woody. I mean, that's just the way he is. So we go fast forward. After that game, of course, you didn't go to any other bowl games then. It was the Rose Bowl, or that was it. So we did nothing. And then Bump retired, and Bo, and then the Detroit Free Press and the Detroit News headlines, Bo who? Don Canham goes out and hires Bo, and nobody knows who Bo is. Apparently, Canham admitted to me that he actually went to Paterno first. He wanted to try to get Joe Paterno to coach us, and Joe recommended Bo. And so then we had hell on us with Bo coming in, and he hired Bo. And to give you a little insight into the character of Schembechler, that day after the press conference in December of '68, he's riding back to the airport with Don Canham, and Canham, Bo looks at Canham and he goes, by the way, what am I going to make? How much money am I going to make? And so Canham, in his own inimitable, always bargaining, well, what did you make at Miami of Ohio? He said, I made $20,000 a year. I'll give you 21. Bo said, good. And Bo said, fine. And that's Schembechler. For the next 21 years, it was a handshake. He didn't have these current contracts where you have a buyout clause, you could break your contract if you give him $5 million. That wasn't the way Bo was. He operated. He'd give you a handshake, and that was the kind of guy he was. Bo comes to Ann Arbor early January of '69, and his program was to do interviews with each individual player. He started with the seniors, and you can imagine mine was all about size. And he got up from his desk, stood up next to me, he goes, you're not even 6 feet tall, you know, you give me all this hard time. And basically he's testing you, you know. And he looked at me and goes, yeah, I can't believe my guards at Miami of Ohio were 6'2", 2 1/4. I said, are you even 5'10"? And I don't know if they're gonna admit that. But yeah, I was under 5'10". I was from 5'11" in the program for 4 years. You can put down anything you wanted in the program. It was 5'11", 222. I thought maybe some pro team would grab me. They knew better. They knew exactly how big you were. The only fielder I got was the Montreal Alouettes. Forget it. But anyway, so Bo sits me down where he's giving me all this grief and wants to feel out if you got any character. And He goes, you know what Woody told me? He said, don't ever start an Italian. They're selfish people. So I looked at him, I said, you believe that crap? And he goes, nah, I was just testing you. So he goes, and the best interview of all is the Dan Deardorff story. If you've heard it, it's a great story. Dan was obviously a very successful high school football player in Canton, Ohio. And he was being recruited by several teams, including Michigan, and he had visited Michigan on a weekend and decided this was one of the big schools that was recruiting him, and he wanted to go to Michigan. The following week, he's got an appointment set up with Schembechler from Miami, Ohio, and Jerry Hanlon to make arrangements for his visit to Miami. Well, his mind's made up. He doesn't want to make any more trips. So he gets a notice in class, Schembechler's here, and Jerry Hanlon, they're going to meet you in the coach's office. Dan, being the mature senior high school football player that he was, he went out the back door and ditched him. 3 years later, newspapers, Bo who? Now Deardorff's he's just freaking out. He goes, I gotta go, this guy's gonna hate me, he's gonna kill me. So he said, I'm gonna nip this right in the bud and do my great personality. And so he goes in for his interview. I'm gonna stick my hand out and shake his hand and welcome Bo on board. He goes, Bo, Dan Deardorff, great to see you. Bo takes his hand, goes right past Dan's hand, grabs him by the stomach. He said, you're fat, you're mine, and I'll never forget. Actually, that story was told at Bo's memorial service in the stadium, but it's a true story, and that's how Bo was. I mean, he didn't forget a thing, never forgot a thing. Now, you did ask a couple questions about decals, and Bo was really into setting goals. He wanted you to have goals. Bo had a fundamental philosophy that youth of America at that age, in the 18 to 21 range, they require discipline, and he wanted to give them discipline. He wanted them to know how far you could push the envelope. So he really believed in discipline and setting goals. So he wanted to get something to go with these decals for the helmet, which we didn't have with Bo. And Jim Young, who did all the gimmicks for Bo, put this together, and there were offensive football decals, and then there were defensive. So as far as offensive one, if you made an outstanding block, if you made a great catch or a great run, you get a decal. A touchdown pass, if you run the ball over 25 yards, an outstanding second effort, which will play into, the next was if you had 4 cross-field blocks, meaning you blocked the guy in front of you, you went upfield and blocked another guy to get the guy free. You made that second effort, that was a decal. If you get the ball, receive the ball, and start your offensive plays from inside the 5-yard line, all you had to do is get a first down, and you got a decal. You got to get room for the punter, so you had to do that. And if you got the ball, and if you moved the ball inside the 15-yard line of their opposing team, and you scored a touchdown, you got a decal. And then the scouting player, the offensive player that would go across and scrimmage against the defense all week, playing the opponent's offense, the best player that week got a decal. On defense, pass interference, a block kick, a kickoff tackle inside their 20-yard line, you cause a fumble or an interception, you recover a fumble, you stop the team when they're inside your 10-yard line and force them to kick a field goal. And the defense scores a touchdown, the entire team gets a decal. Outstanding second effort again, great hit, and the scouting team player that does the best job that week against the offense gets a decal. Those are fundamentally, that's it. But there were a lot of decals given. And I'd tell you quickly, we were out at the Rose Bowl, and we had to go to a temporary facility to practice for 2 weeks at a junior college. And of course, the equipment manager was in charge of the decals, and we all found out where he hid them. So for the Rose Bowl, we had decals. I mean, everybody. There wasn't a plain open area on the helmet without a decal. We kept robbing them every day and putting on our helmets. We were getting our brains beat in out there. I mean, both thought it was summer practice again. It took us for the first week of Pasadena was 2-a-day sessions. Can you imagine? Anyway. Some of Bo's theories and philosophies were you practiced. If you didn't practice, you didn't play. So Tuesday was the big hitting day. We had 2 hours of contact drills, and I mean live ammo. We were going at it for 2 hours. The next day was an hour and a half. The Thursday was about an hour. But if you didn't practice on Tuesdays, Bo rule, you don't play on Tuesday, you're not gonna play Saturday. That's it, you're done. And everybody sort of bought into it, but we knew Bump sort of let us go sometimes, and some of our coaches would, for a serious injury. But in the middle of that season, well, just early middle is the Michigan State game, and we get upset. We're a 17-point favorite, and we get upset by Michigan State. And they kicked they beat us. We weren't ready for them, and we played them up in Lansing. During the game, 2 of our starters are injured. They don't play Tuesday. They don't practice. They didn't practice Wednesday. They come out Thursday to practice. So Thursday evening, when you do an away game, and our next game is Minnesota in Minneapolis, they put a sheet up and tell you who's on the traveling team. And back then, you could only travel 52 guys. And so we would be anxious to see who's on the traveling team. Well, these 2 guys that were starters didn't make the traveling team. So everybody said, oh, this guy's serious about this, And so we go up there. Fortunately, we go up there and we have a big win. We just ran the ball down their throat. And you'll believe it or not, if you ever see any 69 games, we actually threw the ball a lot more than he did later. Because then he got those big linemen and he never could throw the ball. But we threw the ball quite a bit. We mixed it up. And so we beat Minnesota. It was a great win. Garvey had a great game. Billy Taylor, great game. One of our best running games ever. And so we get on the plane and now we realize what this guy says, you better do it. And if you do it, you're gonna win. And basically, it really put us as a glue. We glued together after that Minnesota game. And we went on to beat Wisconsin, Illinois, and Iowa very soundly, 35-7, 57-0, and then 51-6 at Iowa. We beat them and went into the locker room, and all they said in the locker room after the game, we just wanted Ohio State. We could care less about what we had just done on the field. And we were, I say on this day we were ready. We could have played Ohio State that afternoon. Just got New Jerseys, go down there and play. We would have played them. We were ready. We were that far. We were ready to go. So, the Ohio State game week. You go into, you got another big game. Ohio State national champions the year before, 22-0, hadn't lost a game in 2 years. They hadn't even been behind in a game in 1 year. Sports Illustrated said the only team that could beat Ohio State is the Vikings, Minnesota Vikings. And our Monday is our team meeting when we get a scouting report on who we're going to play. And who's over you, what size he is, how you're going to block them, and all those good things. And Bo says at the end of the meeting, he said, the old man, who they all affectionately referred to Woody as the old man, they loved him. The old man put 50 on you, and I'm not going to let you forget it. So we leave the meeting, go upstairs to our lockers, and there's 50 everywhere. Every locker had 50. Every taping table had a 50 on it. You couldn't go in the shower room without a 50 on the curtains. So we had 50 everywhere. Now we get our dress, we go to the field, the practice, and the demonstration team, they're all wearing 50s. And they all got 50s on their helmets. So he just, and it was brutal. But we were really ready, and we were ready to play and ready to practice. And in fact, that Tuesday scrimmage, the assistant coaches grabbed Bo and they said, we're not going to have a demonstration team left if this keeps up. These guys are killing them. They're going to fall off the field. Our team is too high for Tuesday. They got to get them down to get them peaking by Saturday. And Bo said, no way, we're going higher. And that was his attitude. He told the assistant, don't worry about it. We're going to keep going higher. So a lot of people think about great coaches and think about great pep talks and everything like that. In fact, the famous Bear Bryant quote, he goes, I give the same pep talk before every game, it just works better when my players are better than the other guy's players. Which is true. But Bo never gave a big rah-rah speech because he was pumping you up starting Tuesday. He was going crazy on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. He was up the whole week. And so we get into the game and he would just look at us and he tried to bring it down to small issues. Like, what is your narrow issue? Don't think about 22-0 Minnesota Vikings. He would just say, like, Garvey, you got to play, I'll play Jim Otis. Bandage, you all play Jan White, their tight end. Moorhead, you all play Rex Korn. Kelly, you make sure you block Stillwagon and Doug Adams, the linebacker. And he would go right down the line with each guy. And he said, that's all you got to do today. We're going to win. So obviously we bolt out of the locker room. We're like crazy. We're flying off the ground. And we go down the tunnel, which back then was black cinder, because there was a time when we wore cleats. But we go down there, and I'll never forget it. We were at the front. The seniors would always lead out, and it was Cecil Pryor, Jim Mandich, myself, and a couple other seniors, Garvey. And there was a guy, number 26, and I don't remember his name, but he was moseying down from Ohio State. He was the last guy out of Ohio State's tunnel exit. And Cecil Pryor just hit him right in the back of the head with a forearm, pushed him right down to the ground, and we just ran over him. He's like moseying along, and then boom, get you in the back. The game itself, Ohio State scores first. There was an offside penalty or something, and so Woody decided to go for 2, and they didn't get it, so it was 6-0. We get the ball, and we take it down their throats, and we run and mix it up with passing. We had Jim Mandich, great writers, great tight end, Mike Hankwitz. And so we drive it down their throats, and we score. And most of that year, Ohio State the defense was 3 downs and out. 3 downs and the other team punted. A lot of other teams went to shotgun offense, try to do something to beat this. I mean, they had Jack Tatum. They had Jim Stillwagon at nose guard, one of the greatest nose guards ever. Doug Adams, the Sensabaugh. Their defense was ridiculous, and they were all all-stars the year before as sophomores. Now they're juniors, and they're really good. And I got to tell you, Tatum, he was Superman. He was really something. He was fast. He hit in that 68 game. The first play of the game, he blitzes and takes Denny Brown right out. Boom, our quarterback. He just took him out, just hit him with his helmet. You know, back then, helmet to helmet was okay. In fact, it was taught. So we stuck our heads every time into people. But yeah, so they just had some really, really good players. And we did run at them, but Bo wasn't that stupid. We ran away from Tatum. So he was always, he lined up as a cornerback on the wide side. We would run into the sidelines. Just stay away from that guy. He was tough. He was tough. We scored that first touchdown. Now we're tied 6-6, and we're going for the extra point. This is the first time they'd be behind in a game. And you could see then, when we lined up, but back then, by the way, when you have punted, kickoffs, there weren't this mass substitution. You know, when we punted the ball, Diernerf and I are covering punts. Can you imagine? I mean, we were like 5'8", 40s. But that's, so we're lining up for the extra point, the same defense we just blocked and the same offensive lineup. And you could see in their helmets that they were sweating. They were sweating bullets, and their faces were red, and they were tired. They had never been in a game that long. And so that's when, you know, I looked around and said, I think we got these guys. I think we got them. We got them under control, and that was it. We finished the halftime score at 24-12. Again, the locker room was crazy. We couldn't wait to go back down to play. And Jim Young, before Bo gave, we always have individual meetings. I mean, that's the one thing that I noticed the difference with some of our coaches these days in Ann Arbor. There's not a lot of coaching going on at halftime, and you got to coach at halftime. If you don't coach at halftime, for Iron, you lose, and we would never lose the second half. And so we had our meeting, we had team meetings, and it was school all over again, and it wasn't really all this rah-rah stuff. And then Bo finishes, let's go out and do it, and Jim Young gets up there. Before you go, I want you to know one thing: Ohio State will never score again. And he was a defensive coordinator, because they're not going to score on us. I'm telling you right now, we got them, and they didn't. They didn't score again. In the second half, we had a great half. Barry Pearson was our star little safety from St. Ignace, Michigan, Upper Peninsula. He had 3 interceptions, a couple of punt returns, almost in the end zone. He had a great game. We were moving the ball enough in the second half, and we missed 3 field goals. And back then, you know, we kicked field goals like Lou to Toe Groza. You know, you kicked them straight on. And nobody was a good field goal kicker back then. But we missed 3. And we missed 2 first or fourth down and 1 inside the 15-yard line. So we had moved the ball pretty well against them, even in the second half. We just didn't score. And our defense just kept them out, just the way Coach Young said. He said, you guys are not going to score. Now, we go after the game, and I hope all of you saw this past year's game. It was exciting to watch, the 2021 Ohio State game. And that's what happened. They just filled the field with kids. And that's what we had. We had an on-field celebration. It was crazy. You didn't want to leave because all your buddies were down there and jumping all over everybody. And we finally did get to the locker room. And when you go to the locker room, we looked around. There's probably 85 guys in there, and every one of them looked like they had played every down. Total exhaustion. So, you know, you could really, you experience it. It was a total team event. It was every guy in that locker room played. I don't care if they rather had minutes, but they played. And they had a hell of a week, and they were totally exhausted. So Sunday is film day. And you can imagine after a win, it's a great day to go. If you lose, you don't want to go that way. But if you win, and this win obviously was big, so we went in there. And if you notice this year, they had guards around the goalposts. I don't know if you noticed it. But I paid special attention because when we played, there were no guards. They weren't ready for this. And those goalposts were in 30 feet of concrete. They weren't going anywhere until our team, our players, our students in '69 tore them down. And so that Sunday we go to watch film, and there's sections of the pipe hacksawed for us to autograph. Like 2 and 3 foot sections of it. They had hacksawed the poles. I have no idea how, but it was all the different students, different fraternities, different dorms, different groups of kids had their pieces of the goalpost there. So we win the right to go to the Rose Bowl. We go to the Rose Bowl, and back then, the Big Ten contract with Pasadena, and I don't know how they got this contract, but we had to go for 17 days before the game. So we're sitting in this hotel, which was, I don't know how many. It was 20%, maybe normally a hotel, 80% permanently occupied by a lot of senior citizens. And so we're staying in this hotel out in Pasadena for 17 days, and it was tough. Of course, you do the fun thing, did Disneyland, SeaWorld, Lowry's Beef House, the prime rib, and they had the beef bowl, which we were not allowed to participate in. We got 1 prime rib each guy. If anybody has a second one, you're in trouble. And the Bo said, "That's it, I'm not." And the guy I played against, one of the guys had 4 prime ribs for Southern Cal. I have no idea how they had it. And by the way, a point of reference is one of the guys that played over me, they always, because our guards were small and not that big, they would always put a tackle over us, get a linebacker, move him somewhere else. I wanted the linebacker, because he was my size. But we get a down guy, and the down guy that was over me turned out to be one of the famous chauffeurs in modern history, Al Collins, AC, who drove the white Bronco for OJ. And he was quite a football player, I got to admit. Al Collins was an All-American and a great player. He played over myself for Deerdorf, moved around, and every time he got over me, I told Dan, "Would you come down and block this guy? I'm going around." I don't want any part of this guy. But the festivities and going to all these events got to us, and there was a Big Ten tradition to go to a monastery up in the foothills of Pasadena the night before the game. And we opted to go 2 days early. We said, "Can we get out of here? It's crazy." I mean, that's how it was. It was really crazy. And if you recall, Bo had a heart attack the morning of the game. He probably had a slight heart attack the night before, on the 31st of December. But he definitely had a heart attack the morning of the game. Now, they don't tell us this. We always have a team meeting before we get on the bus and go to the stadium. And they don't tell us this until that meeting. And Jim Young gets up and says, "Bo had a heart attack." Well, the guys were really shook up. And because he brought us there, he was our guy, he was our leader. And honestly, some of us, I think, really thought maybe he was dead. But that he wasn't well, and he was in trouble. And I always told this to Bo, and Sue was at many meetings with Bo and dinners with us in the winter, that I told Bo once that I said, "I wish they had just walked us through the hospital to see you all wired up and beating nurses up and throwing pans at everybody," because I think that would have given us, we would have felt a lot better, because it wasn't like, people, "Didn't you go win one for the Gippers?" No, it wasn't that way. We were like, that was our guy. We might have lost one of our guys. And so I can tell you, we had a solid team, and we lost 10-3. We were actually an 8-point favorite in that game, and their only touchdown was because we had a guy with a broken arm, thanks to Bo, with the 2-a-day practices. Our defensive back, Barry Pearson, let the guy get under him. The only touchdown scored was actually sort of a mistake. So we played him tough, but one thing about it, the Rose Bowl was somewhat disappointing itself. The rest of the time, we had a great time, but you can never really tarnish, that season or that '69 game. And just to bring it to an end here, I wanted to give you a little story about the Rose Bowl. My favorite Cecil Pryor story. Cecil was a great big kid out of Corpus Christi, Texas. He was 6'5", about 240, and is strong, great defensive end. And so NBC sent a crew to Ann Arbor to videotape our interviews, so that our introductions before the game would be in a casual environment like a library or whatever. and we had our blazers on, and we're sitting there. And so there were 4 of us as a group, and the deal was you would sort of like give your name, your position, your hometown, your class level, and your major. So I did I'm Dick Caldarazzo from Chicago, Illinois. I'm a senior. I play offensive guard, and my major is economics. Something like that. And then, so they put on camera on Cecil Pryor. I'm Cecil Pryor from Corpus Christi, Texas. I'm a senior defensive end, and my major is nuclear physics. Well, that's exactly what happened. The guy holding the boom mic falls on his butt and starts laughing. So Cecil goes, "What the F you laughing at, man?" Okay. Well, it went on, you know. And I went home after that game, and all my friends said, "That guy's in nuclear physics. That's amazing." I said, "Yeah, he's in nuclear in phys ed. He's in nuclear physics." But no, thank you. That's I thought I'd give you a laugh at the end. If you have any questions, feel free. I'm here. I'm at your mercy. Go ahead.
That game, the Rose Bowl, when they were showing, we were watching it on TV, and I kept complaining and saying, "Why aren't they showing Bo? Why aren't they showing Bo?"
That's
And
right.
It wasn't until the end of the game that they announced that he had had a heart attack.
Yeah, nobody knew. I don't think anybody knew. Well, we found out like 2 hours before we got on the bus.
It must have been devastating.
Yeah, it was sad. It was really sad. It was devastating. I mean, there were guys crying. Yeah, it was sad. But you had to move on. You had to go knock your head into somebody.
So obviously the game has changed a whole lot since 1969. If you were a player today compared to back then, what do you think that you would like the most about playing today, and what would you miss the most about what you played, the way the game was played back when you were?
Yeah, well, first off, it'd be a miracle if I was playing today. I showed a few people there a picture of the current guards. When we had our 50-year reunion in 2019, I took a picture with the 2 guards, you know, it was pretty awesome. But what would I enjoy about today would be that you're not sticking your head in everybody's chest. And that was, we were coached that way. And it was, to be honest with you, it was the best way to actually tackle or block somebody. You put your head right in a guy's sternum, and you could follow him. And if you took a side, try to tap your shoulder, you could get beat very easily. The guy could fake you and go the other way. So it was, and that was, I could never forget, Larry Smith, our guards and centers, all nose them up. Everything was nose them up. So that is something they don't do now. And we go to practice and watch these guys block with their arms. You know, that's all they do. It's all arms and shoulders. You know, that's it. And I did talk to the trainer. I go, you know, I've had neck surgery and low back surgery, and I went. I'll tell you a quick story about my neck. About 25 years ago, I went to Loyola University Hospital, and the neurosurgeon, I had to do an MRI, and he looked at my neck, put the thing up in the screen, and he went, "Ooh." And he walked out of the room and he brought in 15 interns in. And he said, "You guys gotta look at this guy's neck. You've never seen anything like it in your life. There's not a disc left." You know, and most necks have a nice little curvature. Mine is straight as an arrow. So that, I would certainly appreciate blocking without your head, and that was for sure. And you know, it's just a different game now, though. It's a big different game, and I don't know how anybody would fit in with this. It's a whole new ballgame today, especially with this NIL, the name, image, and likeness, money that's going around. But I think that's truly the NCAA's fault. They had it in their hands. If they had seriously given these guys $100 a week, spending money so that they were on some kind of level with the rest of the kids on campus, it would have been a lot better. But you know, you had guys that couldn't even buy their jersey at MDEM, couldn't afford $95 for a jersey or stuff like that. So it is different now. It's a lot different. But we'll see what happens. It's completely guessing. Nobody knows what's going on with this NIL stuff and the portal. Michigan State had 21 guys come through the portal last year. We had 0. And I think our school, and that's fine with me, that they are a little tougher on letting them in. Michigan still tries to hold a little academic over the coach's head, and I think that's probably what Harbaugh may be negotiating. I'm not sure, but he'd probably like a little more leeway to compete, because we can't get these kids, the portal guys. Can't get them. It's a different ballgame right now. And most of them actually go to like academies, like IMG Academy. They graduate 4 years of high school, then they go somewhere else to get grades and to get the ACT test to pass. That's where they all come from. Oh, and I did want to thought it was formal, I brought my coat, I wanted to show you my coat. Bought it in Ann Arbor at Van Boven's on State Road. And I'll never forget, Garvey and I bought them together, and Garvey, he said to me, he said, well, I just know it's coming, it's not when, I know it's coming, someday we're gonna take these off and wear them inside out. And we've had one too many drinks. Yeah, we did that, I'm sure we did that. Yes, some of you.
Yeah, I was at I had the fortune to be at the 1970 Rose Bowl.
Oh, yeah.
Which you participated in. And I always thought it was the Big Ten versus the Pac-10. That was the whole deal. So what do you think of this new playoff situation we have with the top 4 teams? And where is that going?
Well, funny you ask that question, because I have a feeling about that. I don't think we're in any different position now than we were then. And I know it was all voting, and it was the AP and the UPI coaches poll. And they voted for a national championship. And I don't know if it's any different now. They still vote to get 4 in. So I'm not that in love with this situation. I think it's inevitable that things get, this name, image, and likeness thing got out of hand. You know, these kids are making a lot of, like one kid gets $1 million at Alabama, you know. So as long as he shows up for his autograph sessions, that whoever gave him the $1 million, but yeah, I'm not enamored with this new system. I don't think it's all that good. I think the election was fine. Let these teams play, and the rivalries were what is important, and that's what we're losing. We're losing a lot of rivalries. I was just talking to Brian about that. Penn State has lost so many great games they had back then in the East Coast. They had great rivalries, and not going to happen. Unfortunately, I think they're going to keep us and Ohio State together. If we didn't win last year, they might not. You know. We revived it. We put a little life into that game. But yeah, I mean, I'm not 100% sure it's the right way to go. And expansion just really nauseates me. 8 games. I mean, how many games are we really have student athletes or not? And I don't think we have them anymore. I think it's all about, it's sort of professional in a sense. You know, you're not worried about these kids going to class if you're going to make them play 12, 14 games. Could be 14 games in a year. And then the all-star games, combine, pretty crazy, pretty crazy. Hi, yes?
Do you think freshmen should be allowed to play?
Yeah, I think nowadays the kids are grown up and developed. I think it's okay. I mean, the problem is, as a coach, you're gonna lose him. You might lose the kid after a couple of years, you know, he's gonna go, if he's that good. But did I like what we had? Yes, I thought that was the best way, what we did. And you got a year to get used to school, being away from your parents, in a dorm. I thought that was the best. Let the freshmen develop and learn, you know. I really do think that was the best, but I don't know how we dodge it now. These kids are that good, and they're that developed, you know, they are really developed. There's too much steroids in hamburgers. I did read that in a Wall Street Journal, and they said that's the phenomenon about why these kids are so big now. Because the life of a cow is about 9-10 months, versus it used to be about 2 years when we were eating meat. And they just juice the cows up, and all the kids are eating that meat. McDonald's, Culver. Yes, sir.
How many of your classmates actually graduated versus what's going on today? I think it's such a positive.
That is a good question. I remember that we had 26 seniors get our M ring. They give only to seniors. And at the University of Michigan Club of Detroit. And at that time, 24 had graduated, or would graduate, and finally the 26 all graduated. We all graduated then. Now it's just, it's a stopping point, and I don't know, it's hard. In fact, I'll be honest with you, because I didn't want my parents to have to pay for my schooling, I took 18 hours for my last 3 semesters, so I could graduate on time. And I was taking economics and speech and English and things like that. So it wasn't that easy, but you had to do it. You know, of course, I did have, I must admit, I had astronomy with Doc Losh. 16 hours of A, thank you. Keep me alive. She was, Doc Losh was A for athletes, B for boys, C for poets. I was in her last class. And guys came back from 20 years ago, brought her flowers. The place was like, it was huge. It was like a big memorial service. She was crying. I didn't want to quit, and she didn't want to quit. The school forced her because of her age. But Doc Losh, actually with Bump and with Oosterbahn, she traveled with the team. She flew on the plane. Yeah, well, if you give enough A's out, you're gonna get a seat. You're gonna get a seat on the plane. And I used to go meet with Doc Losh and talk to her. I'm gonna do a paper course, Doc. Can I get 3 hours credit? Oh yeah, you got it. So, and then there all these. Her desk was a mess, but I'd find like here's Cassie Russell's paper. You know, here's Rick Volk, Nunley. I mean, guys like that. You see the older guys, all their papers are still on the table. So just pull that off, straighten the name out.
Yeah.
Not really. I really worked hard on that. You got to get a break somewhere. But that's it.
Thank
Okay.
you so much.
Thank you all. Thank you.